Anthropic, valued at $2 trillion, 2 months from the largest AI IPO in history, just agreed to pay $6 billion for a 3-year-old Israeli startup that generates AI video in real time. Decart AI has never turned a profit. Its revenue is a fraction of Anthropic's annual compute bill. Its product, real-time world models that generate interactive simulated environments, is impressive technology with no proven enterprise market at scale. $6 billion. For a company whose commercial thesis is untested. The number makes no sense until you look at what Anthropic's own margins are doing right now. Then it makes perfect sense. And the implications for OpenAI's IPO, for Google's position, and for every AI lab racing to justify their hardware spend are enormous. Let's start with the context that makes this deal legible. Anthropic filed its IPO confidentially with the SEC in June. The expected timeline, October 2026. Target valuation, $2 trillion against roughly $47 billion in annualized revenue reported in May. Some of Anthropic's backers are now telling investors that revenue will land $100 billion and $120 billion annualized before year-end, tenfold growth in 7 months. Those numbers explain the $2 trillion valuation. What they don't explain is the margin problem sitting underneath them. Anthropic spent $19 billion on compute in 2026 alone. $1 in hardware for every dollar in revenue. Gross margins in early 2026, roughly 40%. The target Anthropic has given investors for 2028, before the NASDAQ listing is finalized, is 77%. You cannot get from 40% to 77% by selling more Claude API calls. The math doesn't work. You need a structural change in how compute generates revenue. That's what Decart is. Decart builds real-time world models. That term sounds academic. What it means in practice: AI systems that generate interactive environments frame by frame with sub-100 millisecond latency. Their product Oasis generates fully navigable 3D environments, cities, factories, warehouses, in real time from text or image prompts. Their product Lucy trans live video streams on the fly. Both run on the same underlying architecture, generative video models that respond to input in milliseconds rather than minutes. The use cases are robotics, autonomous vehicles, gaming, manufacturing simulation, and synthetic data generation. Every industry that needs to train AI in simulated environments rather than the real world. Self-driving cars that can practice millions of scenarios without leaving a server room. Warehouse robots that learn picking strategies in simulation before touching a physical box. This technology is NVIDIA-backed. Sequoia and Benchmark led earlier rounds. The team is 15 people, all researchers from Tel Aviv. The question is not whether this is good technology. It is good technology. The question is why a company 2 months from a $2 trillion IPO would spend $6 billion on an unproven revenue stream when it could be polishing its balance sheet for investors. And the answer is hiding in the unit economics of Claude itself. If you want to understand the margin mechanics that drive every major AI company decision before Wall Street prices them in, subscribe. Anthropic's current business model is sell Claude API calls, pay for GPU compute to serve them. Every Claude response requires inference compute. More users means more compute. Revenue grows linearly. Cost grows linearly. The margin stays flat at 40%. This is the SaaS trap applied to AI. Traditional SaaS has 90% gross margins because software costs almost nothing to serve at scale. AI inference is fundamentally different. Every additional user consumes real hardware cycles. There is no free replication. To reach 77% margins, the number Anthropic promised investors, you need to change the ratio between revenue per compute cycle and cost per compute cycle dramatically. There are only ways to do that. 1. Make inference radically cheaper. 2. Find use cases that extract radically more revenue per GPU hour than a Claude API call. Option 1 is the AMD chip deal, 2 gigawatts of MI450 GPUs designed for inference efficiency. That helps on cost. Option 2 is Decart And this is where the 6 billion makes sense. A Claude API call costs Anthropic compute and generates revenue per token. A world model simulation, running continuously, rendering frames in real time, powering a self-driving car's training loop or a robot's learning environment, generates revenue per GPU hour continuously, not per request, per unit of time. This is the difference between selling individual rides on a toll road and leasing the entire road. Enterprise simulation contracts are not priced per API call. They are priced per hour, per day, per month continuous compute. A manufacturer training warehouse robots needs Oasis running 24 hours a day. An autonomous vehicle company needs it running constantly. The revenue is continuous and predictable, exactly what institutional investors want to see on an IPO filing. And the margin on simulation compute is structurally higher than inference because the workload is predictable. There is no demand spike, no cold start, no idle compute waiting for user queries. The GPU runs at full utilization continuously, and the customer pays for every hour. Anthropic's problem is not revenue growth. Revenue is growing at 10x per year. The problem is that inference revenue grows at 40%, margins, and never improves. Decart's technology gives them a revenue stream that can hit 77% margins because the compute utilization is constant and the pricing model captures the full GPU hour. 6 billion is not a revenue acquisition. It is a margin acquisition, and it lands 60 days before the largest AI IPO ever. Anthropic needs 77% margins to justify $2 trillion at 43 times revenue. Without a structural margin shift, investors will question whether Anthropic can ever match traditional software economics. The Decart acquisition is the bridge. By October, Anthropic can tell investors, Claude handles the inference business at scale. Decart handles continuous compute simulation workloads at higher margins. The blended margin trajectory reaches our 7% target. OpenAI's IPO, not expected until 2027, faces the same margin question with a worse answer. Their consumer app runs at even lower margins, the cost of serving 900 million users. They don't have a Decart. They don't have a continuous compute business. Their margin trajectory depends entirely on cutting inference cost, which benefits Anthropic equally. Google doesn't need this move. They have TPU Ironwood and 82% cloud growth. Their infrastructure is the margin business. But every other AI lab, Mistral, Cohere, anyone racing toward public markets, will look at this deal and ask, do we have a Decart? Do we have a path from 40% to 77? Without one, the IPO valuation they want is mathematically unjustifiable. This deal just showed Wall Street what the margin bridge looks like. Every AI lab, without one, just lost valuation leverage. $6 billion for 15 researchers in Tel Aviv building real-time world models. The number is absurd until you understand that Anthropic needs to double its gross margins in 24 months to justify the largest AI IPO in history. And the only way to do it is to find revenue streams where GPU utilization is constant rather than request-driven. Decart is not a bet on video generation. It is not a bet on gaming. It is a bet on continuous compute revenue. The business model where GPUs run full load every second and the customer pays for every hour. That margin math is what changes a 40% gross margin company into a 77% target. The hidden winner is every enterprise buyer who needs simulated environments, robotics, autonomous vehicles, manufacturing. Anthropic just acquired the team that makes those environments run in real time on Claude's existing infrastructure. That is cross-sell at structural scale. The hidden loser is every AI lab that doesn't own a margin asset. OpenAI's 2027 IPO just got harder. Mistral's path to public markets just got narrower. The bar for IPO-ready AI company now includes a credible margin bridge story, and Anthropic just defined what that looks like. If you want to understand which AI companies are building margin bridges and which ones are running into the wall, subscribe. Tell me in the comments, does the Decart deal make Anthropic worth $2 trillion, Or is this acquiring revenue they haven't proven they can sell?